Robin Hollander for Cocaine Bear, Pablo Helman for Killers of the Flower Moon, Andrew Jackson for Oppenheimer, Laura Pedro for Society of the Snow, and Mike Lasker for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, all incredible VFX artists. And I guess, we just wanted to start. We've talked a lot in all our separate interviews about kind of like this doing invisible work and kind of like making it feel as real as possible. And I guess for you, what is, so in general as VFX people, what is the biggest excitement about doing that kind of thing where you want to make it feel as real as possible, and how much of that is an enthusiastic challenge for you, I guess, at this point of your incredible careers. Robin, we can start with you and we'll go around.
Well, I think for me, I think I might speak for a lot of people in the industry. I think there's a background in photography and a love for the media. And I think what I love about that is it's a tangible art form, right? You can pick up a camera, you can pick up your iPhone, you can take a photo, you can sort of geek out over it. And I think as a visual effects artist, you suddenly start breaking it down, and shadows and clouds that look real or don't look real, and aberrations and all that kind of stuff. So that's always excited me. And I'm just really happy at the state of the industry right now that it feels like there's more of a shift again to realism, maybe is the wrong word, but more photography. So less people on a green screen, more stuff that is shot and be adding to it rather than creating the entire thing. And that excites me because, again, it has that tangible feeling of something that I can relate to, something I can pick up and sort of feel a little bit more. That's the thing that I really enjoy about it, and the sort of the nuances that you can find in all of that as well.
Yeah. Pablo, how about you?
Well, for me, it's about storytelling. It's about, being a filmmaker and realizing that you are part of a team of people that, filmmaking is like one of the most collaborative disciplines in art that you could have. And if you have the chance to work with no compromises and no budget constraints or anything like that, and you can free your mind to take a look at the content and what it is that you're reading the script and the director wants to bring in, and you're contributing to that. Thinking that if we didn't have visual effects, we didn't have the storytelling, because we can shoot a play that, of course. I mean, for me, it's the best way to do it is to do as a combination of things. And for me, visual effects is about putting something together with something that we shot that is completely invisible. If we do that, then we're telling a completely different story than what we shot, and it's part of that storytelling.
Yeah, Andrew, how about you?
Look, I love working on shows that are grounded in the real world, and I know that's only really one part of the whole visual effects world, because there's a lot of things, with monsters and creatures that we all know are not, real things. But for me, my particular kind of love, really, I suppose, is exactly that, as Robin was saying, of kind of referencing the real world and finding what it is about that scene or the particular thing that you're trying to achieve that makes it look as real as possible, and using photography or at least referencing real photography and using real light, and I've certainly found myself going away from the idea of using green screens and blue screens these days. And as Roto gets better and easier, it allows the DP to light the scene and make it look more real from the start. And we know it's going to be a little bit harder later, but we can reference that real photography much more and bring the visual effects into that world. So that's kind of the way that I love to work.
Yeah, definitely. Laura, how about you?
Well, for me, it's like a mix between them. For me, and most of the projects that I work, we have a large of conversation with the directors, thinking about how we can help the story with our artists, with the VFX. So for me, this part is really interesting, to help the project to help the director to tell the story, and also to work with the DP, with all of the crew to can have what the story needs. So also with the reference, with everything, but I like a mix between both of them. It's like all of the projects I've been working is like is this mix for me.
Yeah. And Mike, how about you? Like you're saying, like in Spider-Verse, like even like making it feel like it's hand painted, like all these different things. It's like so like tactile, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like it feels so real, even if it's like it feels like a comic book you can hold, basically.
Well, it's interesting because we're trying to make paintings that look like real paintings, but at the same time, we're shooting handheld, where we have sort of optical effects and depth of field. There's no motion blur, but you've got glows, you've got lens flares, and how do those more photography-based effects mix with this stylized world? So we need to have like a stylized version for all of those. So like a lens flare, we've got like 6 versions of that. Depth of field, we've got 6 different types, and we have to make it so you don't look at things that are out of focus. So we have to come up with a stylized way that it looks brushed, but it's not distracting, right? So and a lot of my background, a lot of our artists, we came up through live action, more realistically rendered techniques, and where we are using a realistic render. So we're constantly sort of taking what we like from it, subtracting other things, because you want a little bit of global illumination, a little bit of realistic lighting, but just enough that it looks really sophisticated, and then you can strip it all away and get more stylized. It's a real fine line with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Robin, you mentioned like before there about like getting away from green screens. I think Andrew did too, and like, or like kind of that. Do you think that's also because of the improvement in home, like, what I mean, like people now, not just in theaters, but like obviously like we have 4K TVs and 4K. Do you guys feel like that is partially because the delivery systems are better for people at home? Like, I don't know, like how do you guys think about that in terms of like creating this stuff where it's like, oh, now like people are really able to see what we're doing, and like you don't want to, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be, if there is something that's not perfect or great, they're going to really be able to notice. I guess, do you guys think about that at all? And Robin, we could start with you and then go back around. I don't know. What do you think?
Not necessarily, because I think the standard that we set ourselves in this virtual room are probably higher than the end viewer ever will have. Okay. And that's, it's to our detriment quite often, because we will nuss out over details that no one else cares about. I think with the green screens, it's I don't know, it's potentially just, I think the human eye and the human mind is so tuned to what is real and what isn't. And it doesn't take much for that to just sort of break. And you look at it and go, that doesn't look real. The relationship between this and that does not look real, but I don't know why, potentially as an end user. And I think as soon as you shoot something in the real world, like Andrew said, if you take the green screen away and just spend a little bit more time actually extracting that person or that object properly, maybe adding on top of that, I think that blend between what is real and what isn't just kind of goes away a little bit more. And, I'm a big fan of that. My background is a compositor, so I want my effects to be invisible. I want it to be the kind of thing that my grandmother does not really understand what it is I'm doing, because I'm pointing at a picture saying I did half of that, and she goes, what do you mean? That they were all there. And that's the thing. It's that subtlety of the human brain and the human eye that I think you almost can't control at that level. You just know whether it's real or not. And the more real you shoot, the better that result, I think, will be.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Pablo, you were saying when we were talking before about the final shot of Kills the Flower Moon, I didn't, again, another one where I was like, how is that? That's not, those aren't real people. I don't know. I just felt like, so I guess like would you agree with like what Robin was saying there a little about? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it is about technology, and it's about, your younger people are getting more sophisticated too. But it's also, for me, it's about performance. Because when you are in a set that has blue screen, the actors don't perform the same way. And if you don't have that, and you allow also the lighting to do what it needs to do, for me, it's 95% of the shot is the lighting. And I have found that you can never escape what you shoot. You can change it a little bit, but you know what? It's just the spirit of what you're shooting is going to be there. So for me, yes, I mean, there's no blue screen or green screen. I mean, if you really think about where it comes from control. I mean, in visual effects, we want to have all the control because we want to separate all the pieces and we want to change all the stuff. Well, the director wants to have all the control. The actors want to have all the control. So there's always the DP wants to have a control. So the production designer the same. So it's kind of a dance right there. But I'd rather not have green screen and blue screen. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm sure you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like to give the control of the lighting to the DP on set and not try and kind of, because you're absolutely right. Not just the actors, but everybody. It's like, oh well, you know, it's a green screen shoot. You know, it's like we can't control that, so it's over to you. But you know, then we, like you said, we're trapped in that world of whatever was shot, and it's not necessarily the best thing. And just to your point of the resolution of modern technology, I don't think it helps us, but you know, I think the public now will start seeing bad edges. So the whole not using green screens and blue screens is probably harder now because of the technology, but it's also more important, I think, because like you said, you just feel that, you know, when it's I always say that, you know, we basically use greens. I mean, obviously there are situations where you have to, when you've got a particular foreground element and you know that it's going to be impossible to rotate, but there's so many situations where you just know that it's way harder to make a badly shot look good than it is to do more roto. You know, like if it already looks good and the DP was able to light it, and you know, let's face it, everyone wants backlighting, and if you put a big green screen there, you can't do that. So no. You know, you're already you know, struggling. So yeah, that's definitely my preferred approach.
I always also think, you know, there's a lot of extension work that gets done. I mean, I don't care about blue screen or green screen that gets done outside the actors, you know, especially if somebody has the hair that I have. So it's a real problem. So I'd rather just have everything around the actors, you know, even if it's like 20 by 20 or 40 by 40, and they may have blue screen or whatever, you know, there, but I'm always protecting the performances because I know that that's where the people are looking at.
Yeah.
Interesting what Pablo was saying about the control that all the stakeholders have. You know, you can have the best intentions shooting something on a green screen and knowing what the scene looks like, but the reality is if you shoot in a moonlit forest, that's likely what the shot's going to look like. Whereas if you light for a moonlit forest on a green screen, someone might suddenly turn it into daytime at the beach. You know, we've all seen that happen as well. And then suddenly you have that sort of battle of control of what was set and what we're going to take away from it. And I think that sort of opened up a can of worms sometimes as well.
You know, we obviously don't need green screens on a fully animated film, but we typically light all of our characters together the same way. And then in the comp, we sort of, you know, get them to look like their eventual looks. But once we have them casting shadows in each other within light directions, they all need to look like they're there, but you are sort of tied into that, like it's a live action shoot to some degree. But what's interesting about the 4K, I mean, with Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, audiences like to pause on frames and look for Easter eggs and things like that, especially in the first one. So we were kind of conscious of that going into Across the Spider-Verse. So I mean, it definitely makes it more challenging, but, you know, every single frame we had to make sure was kind of like, you know, perfect and had little things and everything. There were no big mistakes and things like that. Just being conscious of that made things a little bit more tricky.
Yeah. Laura, what do you think about this?
No, for example, for us in Society of the Snow, I think maybe we have only one shot or two filmed with green screen. And it's because we lost completely the snow and we are in the mountain. So we have the background brown and the characters with everything was brown. So it was impossible. And we don't want to use roto there. So I think we only use, for example, in this movie, green screen for 2 shots. The whole movie is filmed in real snow. So, or we replace with the luma key and we put the original mountain with the light that we have in the Andes, which is the same, the light that we have in Sierra Nevada, because we put everything in the same direction. So it matched perfect, those lights. So It's in that case, in our case, we don't use green screens at all.
Yeah. Robin, you mentioned there before about how you want to like a goal is like so your grandmother doesn't know like kind of like what you're doing, but I guess like for all of you like it's a silly question I guess, but I was like, did you have like or like do you have a formative memory of like a visual effect or something that you were like, oh wow, that was like really cool, or like how did they do that? I guess even like in an like from like when you were younger or something, I guess like how, like do you have something like that you were like, oh, that's really cool and I want to know how they did that kind of thing? What do you think, Robin? Did you have one of those?
Oh, I mean, for me, formative movie was Star Wars. Oddly enough, I didn't grow up to be a Star Wars fanboy, but I saw that movie and I was like, I want to blow up spaceships, because I didn't really know that wasn't real. I thought there was a career choice that one could apply for, much to my parents' dismay, because I did try those techniques in the local schoolyard and no one was too impressed with that. Yeah, I think for me, it has to sort of, it's rooted in that history for me, and seeing something I couldn't quite understand, wasn't real, but actually, looked real, but totally wasn't real. So I'm not sure if there was a particular shot from that I could take away, but I think just that as an experience, that sort of set my eyes onto the path a little
For sure. They used to have when I was a kid, I remember there was a like a making of the Star Wars where they had like a lot of like the miniatures and the models that they all like kind of blew. And I remember watching that so much, and it was just really cool to watch how they did it. Pablo, how about you? Do you have like any kind of
sorry, just to add to that, like when I saw Heat, you remember that with Keanu Reeves, I remember they shot tons of stuff there with miniatures, which at the time when you see the movie, it still blows my mind now, or even Con Air movies like that, they had these elaborate motion control rigs and shot explosions of the plane landing on the strip and all of that cool stuff. It still holds up and it still looks so cool. So sorry, it just popped into my mind.
Yeah,
so
no, that's great.
No, that's fine. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens there. I mean, one of the things, having worked with the modelers, from those movies, they have a specific eye that is very difficult to come by these days, because everybody works in front of a monitor as opposed to, just manipulating the models. And so there is a specific aesthetic to shooting it that way, number one. Number two, the lighting was a lot more difficult to control in post. So we used to light those things really well. And so the edges were a lot better, because then you have, your blue screen is lit the right way. And then on the other side, I was just in a demo of a technology that basically gives you automating, automats based on depth on the camera. And so all that stuff is coming. I mean, it's not quite there yet, but it will come in the next 4 or 5 years. And so we'll be able to light and shoot on a background that is not going to be the one that is going to be in the movie, but the lighting is pretty much the same. And we're going to be able to change those backgrounds based on the matting that we, infer from, depth. And I mean, we used to, play a little bit with infrared photography and see if maybe we can just bathe the whole scene in infrared and then just get an automatic that way. But it's not going that way. It's going the depth way, which is great.
Yeah, because depth in itself is another very valuable bit of information.
Yeah, you can get all my hair and properly.
Yeah, that is true. And I think stereo or native stereo movies, obviously there's a few big tentpoles that still use that technology, but for us on the post side, that was really valuable information, because quite quickly before we get any roto paint done, you could block out animation. You could do some really fun things with it, because you have the disparity between the two eyes, which creates a depth matte, so you can start fleshing it out. And I think to Pablo's point, it's really exciting when we start seeing that a little bit more real time on set, because it means the director might have that vision of what is that dinosaur going to look like running back there through that scene, And I think it helps deliver a better product to us, which then helps make it a better end product back for the viewers as well. So it's super exciting that is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my the film that I loved early on was Blade Runner. I just loved that. The way that made a like immersive world that you completely believed, and I know that was like quite early on, and not really any CG effects in there, and that was kind of possible to do that in that time, and to build such an immersive world.
Yeah.
pretty awesome. Laura, how about you? Any movies coming to mind or moments?
For me,
Yeah.
my favorite one that comes to my mind is Death Becomes Her.
It's a great one.
Yeah, it's a movie that normally I rewatch it and thinking about how they do this. It's like I don't know, and it's amazing. It's an amazing movie, and the special effects and the visual effects, I think, that are still working. So no, it's a really special movie for me.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good one. And Mike, how about you?
You know, I was a huge Star Wars fan when I was a kid. You couldn't get, I could recite them by heart. And, you know, movies like Toy Story got me really interested going into the business. But if there's a shot, it's that shot in Jurassic Park where they look up and they see that Brontosaurus for the first time. And the amount of just awe and just, I couldn't believe I was looking at that, just inspired me to get into this business. I just love that feeling of not being able to believe what I was looking at.
It still holds up.
Like,
Yeah, it still holds up. It's
great
so great.
shot.
Yeah.
We have to wrap up here, but this has been such a great conversation. I've loved hearing about all of your stuff. And like I said, these are 5 amazing films and great work. Robin Hollander for Cocaine Bear, Pablo Helman for Kills the Flower Moon, Andrew Jackson for Oppenheimer, Laura Pedro for Society of the Snow, and Mike Lasker for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Just wonderful films, and check them out. And thank you all for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks
Much.
Bye.